like Ethereum was actually more a community offering than a coin offering.
Yeah.
And the community offerings are really interesting to me because what you're trying to achieve, one, you have to raise through the crowd because you're trying to build, you're trying to use distributed design. And so the people you're raising from are going to be your users, and you don't want a centralizing force like venture capital or like large investors to be able to impact or diminish what you're trying to build.
Sure.
So I think at the heart, there are a few projects every year that truly disintermediate and decentralize industries, and they have to do a community style offering. So I look to those ones to have massive impact, but that can't be a general wave of fundraising. I think that the ICOs, I'm pretty sure you're right. They're dead because retail, there's not the retail investment market. There hasn't been for a year. Retail have been left to the bag holders for ICOs where the syndicates and VCs were able to dump on launch. So finding a retail market will only rely on when retail investors are flush with cash again.
Well, so that's an interesting point. So what I do see happening right now is the IEO space has jumped up big time in Asia. I wouldn't say that it's in any way jumped up in Europe or North America at all. It's still dead as it could be. But if you look at Asia, you see Huobi launched Huobi Prime. Coinbean is launching a new IEO platform, and they're going to be the first time you can actually buy ICOs in China. You've got there's another one in Korea. Is it Upbit, maybe I think it's called? And then you've got KuCoin is talking about launching something, and then you've got Bittrex, which will launch one in Malta, which may or may not succeed. But the reason they're doing that is because it re-engages the syndicates to be able to get tokens, in private sales early, and then get out at a higher price on exchange. And the exchanges are sponsoring the projects, which means that what I like about this is you're creating a layer in between the retailers and the buyers, which is the exchanges, which are actually sussing out all the good and bad projects, and they're only taking the best ones. It means that probably only 1 in 100 is actually getting even out there and listed on an exchange at all for the purposes of doing the fundraising. But theoretically, you can shop yourself around to 8 or 10 of these exchanges, and one or several of them will fight over you to get you on there, and that gives you a pretty good indication that only good ones should actually be out there and the rest won't. Of course, that's our hope, that the exchanges are doing the right thing to protect us, but now we're going back to a centralized mechanism of someone making decisions on our behalf because we're incapable of making good decisions because we got scammed. And let's face it, we were not able to make good decisions, David, because we got scammed. We got caught out, every one of us, on something or another along the way in crypto. And now we've got the exchanges to protect us. And they may be scammed too, because I've seen scam projects still get onto these exchanges. So it's just another mechanism, but it's an interesting one because it is sort of in the middle, but it's still ICO mechanism, but it's removing some of the scamming us personally because you go through the exchanges to buy now. If you can even get a coin.
See, I don't know. I look at it in the following way: like there was distributed liquidity when the individual buyers were flush with cash in 2017. The liquidity is pooled around exchanges now. The exchanges were the part of the crypto world that made money in 2018, even if they were making less, and even in early 2019, if they were making less than early 2018, that's fine. No one else was making money. And so where you have liquidity is where you have opportunity to raise. The exchanges have been able to take liquidity and say, well, what extra services? Okay, we can create launch pads, IEOs, etc. on top of it. What's really interesting to me about that mechanism is that it's not a scam or not. But the one question I have is, if we are trying to build decentralized organizations that achieve goals towards further decentralization, products and services, industries, how you can do that without a community baffles me. And if you're raising on an exchange, you're not raising to a community, you're raising to the liquidity that exists within that exchange. That is very different from raising.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, that you're actually relying on the liquidity of that exchange to make the whole thing work. Because if people are not registered there, if they're not registered there, they might get more users. But if you are registered there, then you're just, they may not be adding that many new users. So you're totally dependent on the here's the point, on the legitimacy of the true volumes taking place on that exchange, of which many of us know that most of the volume on these exchanges is wash trading, which means that the buy and the sell point are bots that are running a buy and a sell of a coin like this at the same price to just make it look like they've got volume. And it's well known that most of these exchanges do not have that level of volume. So great point, because now you say, I'll move to a legitimate exchange. And now the question is, which exchanges are legitimate and have no wash trades? And we have no body, no organization that's out there as a watchdog trying to make sure that the exchanges are doing legitimate things. And now we're getting right back into the same old regulation thing of kind of like having the FCA in the UK or the SEC in the US or whatever body, FINMA in Switzerland, where those bodies are basically monitoring what the exchanges do. And we don't have an equivalent body monitoring the exchanges' behaviors and patterns. Notwithstanding, by the way, that fundraising is a regulated activity, and by putting an IEO on these exchanges, it's actually not legal in many countries because they're doing fundraising. So that's why I said, where's the middle ground where we have to draw a line and say, actually, we have to loosen up the rules on fundraising a little bit to allow these things to flow, because we're stopping it. Because one of the exchanges that I work with quite a lot, they don't do this IEO because their team is sitting in the US, because they're based in the Cayman Islands, and because the Cayman Islands is a very closely aligned, following US law country. So they won't do the IEO because they don't want to get in trouble with the SEC for doing fundraising without having a dealer license or a broker-dealer license. Now I know they're trying to get one. So they would be a regulated exchange, and then they could do fundraising and launch legitimate IEOs. But then if they do them in the US, they're going to have the same old problem of, oh, is it a token or utility token, or is it a security? So you go in circles with some of this stuff, like, well, then we need to find some sort of way to do legal fundraising legitimately under a certain value limit that we know is not causing some issues, because we all want to get involved and participate, and we don't want the laws to get in the way of us being able to drive a new economy. And actually, sometimes things are just outdated. Sometimes they're correct, and they're there for a reason to protect us. I'm not sure which it is right now, to be completely honest. I'm on the fence on this.
So it's interesting. So what I see that there will be, when I see signs of health, it is that a business that's raising money knows what it's doing, has built a currency that works for the thing it's trying to do, and raises money in a way that suits it. It could be mining. It could be they break the mold and run a Kickstarter/ICO. It could be that they run an IEO. It could be an STO. There's middle ground or new things that will work out. I'd be happy if there were 10 or 15 mechanisms.
Yeah.
But the story I want to leave with is, if I'm a business now that wants to run an IEO, because that's where money comes from, but I'm trying to build decentralized user base, what will happen is I will launch on the Binance Launchpad if I'm lucky enough to be able to get there. Great, one of the 1,000, fantastic. I'm super excited. There's a big push. My coin goes up, my coin dumps a little bit, and I'm on an exchange early. Now, fantastic. In theory, everybody happy. The problem for me now is, unlike in the ICO world where pre-fundraising I'd worked and started building a community, now post-fundraising I have to build my community.
Yeah.
Because my Binance, the people who purchased on Binance, they're not in my Telegram channel necessarily. They're not in my world. They're not engaged with what I'm trying to build. Yep. I was just another product on Binance for them to buy and sell. So while it looks great that I've been in my IEO and I've raised my money, maybe I'm starting from a much lower base than a bunch of ICOs. So that's the place. Like, I want to make sure that community projects that are trying to build decentralized solutions are able to raise money from their community.
For sure. So crowdfunding should fundamentally be, so if Kickstarter and Indiegogo can follow along where they provide a platform where people can raise money, that's fundraising as far as I'm concerned. I think the same rules should apply in the IEO space, that it's just let's call Indiegogo and let's call Kickstarter exchanges, and they have crowds of people that are funding projects. The only difference is you're getting utility tokens, which have true utility within those ecosystems, versus companies that promise products that never deliver anything, and you lose your money and you have no recourse for the money lost because all the risks on you. Frankly, I think the IEO as on an exchange is probably just as valid, if not more valid, in that from that very limited standpoint, than going and putting my money out for a 3D printer or for a bamboo bicycle for my kids, which never come. And literally, those are things I invested in, which were cool. I mean, bamboo bicycle, a bamboo bicycle, nice, eco-friendly, and they just never got the product off the ground. I mean, that was very sad. And 3D printer was kind of a craze. I thought that'd be cool to have a 3D printer. I don't know what I'd use it for, but I mean, I'll put a bit of money in to help them get off the ground. Never got the printer, And there was excuse after excuse after excuse about what we were doing wrong in terms of what code we were putting into the system to get the damn printer. And we just gave up and said, you know what? Probably a scam. How is that any different as being a scam from these ICOs? I could put the same $300 into an ICO and lose the same money, but people call that a scam, but not getting those products made that they promise and promise and promise they're going to make and deliver, and they never deliver. That could have been a scam too. But it's funny that we never turned to the Kickstarter and Indiegogo companies, the projects that are on there, or those exchanges housing all those projects, and we never went to the stage of calling all these projects as scams. But if you ask people who put money into those crowdfunding things, so many people will say, yeah, I already invested 5 or 10 times and I never got my products. Funny that, because I never got my products in the crypto world either. So what's the difference? And yet we call the crypto ones scams, and we say they have to be regulated, and we say that they have to be, fundraising legally, and we have all these legal constraints we put in for those, but we don't seem to apply the same rules for crowdfunding when it's for products we never received in the Kickstarter Indiegogo world. I just find that so hypocritical, and I, for the life of me, cannot figure out why we're so hypercritical of one and so overly desensitized to the other that we don't even care. It's just absolutely hypocritical to me. But there you go. Cool. Well, this was cool. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate it. And thank you for coming in to bring out these 9+ points. I've really enjoyed this little debate with you, and I'm always happy to do more debates with you on these things. So we should follow it up with something else. And maybe we'll ask our listeners what they'd like us to debate. And whatever they come back with, we'll just go for it unprepared, because that could be fun.
That's fantastic. And yeah, let's just hope that there's a bunch of people or projects out there that can take value from this stuff and design simpler or better currencies as a result. That would be awesome.
Sure. Yeah, how to design better currencies, how to do better fundraising, how to make your tokenomics work better for your business. All very important things that most people seem to forget. They do get overly caught up on their coin rather than their project, rather than the fundraise itself. I mean, so singularly focused on coin price. And, I think people that work in publicly traded companies tend to just kind of park it aside and get on with day-to-day business life. But in crypto, everyone's obsessed with the coin price. So, there's some really good discussion points we've had on all of this, which is great. And hopefully people will take some value from this and come back to us with questions, comments down below in the description, or comments to us on our blogs on the website. And hopefully they'll get some value from this and engage us, and we can answer questions. So great. So David, thank you very much for as I said, for this two-parter. It's been really fun having you here. Thank you everybody for listening, watching, for participating. Give us a subscribe, give us a like, ring the little bell, because David Atkinson is our friend and he likes to get lots of likes and subscribes too. To the moon. Until next time. Thank you for joining us today on The Coin Chat. Join us on Telegram on t.me/thecoinchat, where we discuss a range of topics on cryptocurrency. And visit us on patreon.com/thecoinchat for show notes, outtakes, and previews of additional content. Or follow us on our website, which is www.thecoinchat.net. And remember to like and subscribe to us on your way out. To the moon. Until next time.